Thank you so much for tuning into my show, William Wallace for America. Appreciate your time, and I'm grateful that you're spending it with me either on my podcast, on all podcast apps at William Wallace for America, or on my YouTube and or Rumble channel where you'll find it at the same. You'll probably see me on two channels on YouTube because I used to have one that had a bunch of interviews and subscribers, and then YouTube canceled me last year. And then I just recently got a notification from them that my old account has been reinstated because it didn't find anything wrong with it. So I got to figure out getting rid of one and combining it and bringing content on it. But that's the things that happen when you talk about conservative values, or in the case of today's show, where I want to talk about critical thinking. No, I'm not going to go into a whole nother topic off subject of what I normally talk about and start teaching you about critical thinking, but I want to promote more critical thinking. I would like for people to start thinking more critically and out of observation than using their ideological way of thinking, or thinking within the narrative boxes that we get corralled into and chained into and locked up into because we started hearing to certain narratives or certain elected officials or certain power players that we become adhered to, if you will, and we become invested in them and we become loyal and faithful servants. I mean, faithful to their words, right? I say that kind of intentionally, joke intended, because all too often we get we get locked into some of these people that have bigger voices than us for ideological reasons, and we begin to not use our critical thinking skills to think, is this really true? Is this accurate? Or is it false? Or does it lead to something else that we need to be aware of? So, in today's show, I'd like to cover some topics. First off, I want to cover the Epstein file list because I have some different things I want to talk about that I haven't been hearing regularly. And then I also want to briefly talk about Trump's announcement where he is talking about taking away a license. This was passed on to me by one of my listeners, which I really appreciate because I have something unique that I want to offer. Today's show is brought to you by Bond Arms. Please go visit Bond Arms at bondarms.com. Send them a message on social media. Tell them that William Wallace is talking about them in good ways, of course. And also, don't forget my other sponsor that I like to talk about regularly, which is the Wellness Company. You can use the promo code WWFA at twc.health/WWFA, where you'll get some discounts. And coming up the day after Thanksgiving, they're going to have a Black Friday special where you're going to get an even bigger discount. Stay tuned to the show where we'll talk more about that. All right. And also later in the show, I've got some memes. So if you're listening on the podcast, of course, I'll describe it. And if you're watching on the video, I've got some other stuff coming up. You know, I bring up these two topics today, not for pointing fingers at the other party or the other side, because very often when I bring up a Republican point, somebody says, see, you're a diehard Republican, you're a Trumpster. But then when I bring up a Democrat point, my Republican friends, see, you're turning all Democrat. No, I really, and I just kind of thought about this today before the show. I really just want to use my critical thinking skills and look at all the sides. Yes, I'm always going to be more on the right. I'm always going to appreciate a lot of Trump's policies because I still believe that we're going to be better with Trump than we would have been with Kamala Harris. But I will say I'm not a lapdog either. When things are said that shouldn't be said or done that shouldn't be done, I'm going to point it out. And my listener brought this up today, and I agree that Trump should not have said this. We're going to talk about that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk about that first, and then I'm going to go into the Epstein file. So I have a little bit more to cover with the Epstein file stuff. And I think you'll be interested in some of the players that even I was like, wait, who's this person? And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But Trump yesterday, I'm going to read the article from my phone. I'm not going to read the whole article, by the way. Said Donald Trump says ABC should lose its broadcast license after getting irate over reporters' questions about Jamal Khashoggi's murder and the Jeffrey Epstein files. And it goes on to say that Donald Trump called for ABC to lose its broadcast license after he grew irate at correspondent Mary Bruce after she asked Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman about the 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, and later asked the president about the Jeffrey Epstein files. You can, I don't know how to read the whole article. You can just kind of, that sums it up right there. My immediate reaction is I don't like it. I don't like it that he said that because I believe in the First Amendment, of course, with my radio show, but also in general, I believe in our constitutional values. And to say something like that and threaten something like that is threatening our Constitution. But let's put that off the side. Let's just say Trump was being Trump and blowing off steam. The fact that a president says that opens the door. It softens the target, by the way. The target being the First Amendment, which has been a topic or a target for a long time. It softens the target for future politicians, for future presidents to say the same thing. If Obama or Biden would have said something like that, the right would be inflamed. My Republican friends would be furious. They say, see, Obama really is a communist. See, Biden really is a secret socialist. And I'm going to sigh because it makes me, I don't say sad. It, it really disappoints me. But hey, at least it wasn't a tweet, right? I mean, think about that. If he would have tweeted that, everybody would have said, oh, there he goes, those mean tweets again, which, by the way, you won't hear mean tweets on Patriot Mobile. If you switch your cell phone service to Patriot Mobile by going to patriotmobile.com/WWFA, they believe in the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and all of our constitutional values, and they will protect your right to speak if you choose them for your service at patriotmobile.com/WWFA. Of course, on the video, you're seeing the meme for it. But back to what I was saying is if anybody on the right would have said that, everybody on the right would be in flames. They would be furious about it. So am I calling Trump out for it? No, but I'm calling out what was said because using my critical thinking skills, in my opinion, it softens the targets in the future for future Democrats who want to get rid of the First Amendment, actually. But it also, what it does is it makes people on the left more, how shall we say, more um more ingrained, not more ingrained, they become more solidified in not only their opinion of, or their bad opinion of Trump. It actually deepens their hate, but it also furthers the extent of their hate and criticism of everybody on the right, because then they see the people on the right as the extremist. They begin to see the people on the right as the fascist. Remember, we know that the fascist and the socialists are the people on the left who hide. We know that Antifa members, I know everybody says, that's actually not a group. It's a loosely tied together group. It's a movement at the very least, which can be bigger and more powerful than a group. I won't go there today. That's just my general opinion. But in reality, when we already have, let's just pull this out of my ears. We already have 90% of the Democrats and people on the left who are either one-issue voters, they are adhering to the narratives and ideologies which make them galvanized on the left and dislike people on the right. Not because they're really paying attention to the facts of what their own side is actually doing, but because the narratives have corralled them into that box. So here's what happens. They get over there. They're already galvanized on that side, that 90%, because of the narratives. They're already thinking that the people on the right are the haters. The 10% of them are the actual communists and actual people that believe in socialism. And 10%, again, these numbers are probably going to vary, but proportionally, I would venture to think I'm right because I still believe that the majority of Democrats who vote or people who vote Democrat aren't actually communist minded people. They're not actually socialist minded people. They're really over there for one issue or another and not the belief system or not collectively believing the values that everybody collectively has on the left. But there's 10% who are using them as pawns. They're using them as political pawns to further that leftist agenda, which lives on the left and on the Democrat side of the party, which is going extreme, as we know. Either way, back to my point. Follow me here. Rolling back. For Trump to say something like this, you get 90% of the people on the left. See, we knew it was the right that was the fascist. We knew it was the Republicans that wanted to get rid of the freedom of speech. You see, they really want to control our freedoms. That's what happens. That's the real problem when Trump says something like that. Not that he's actually going to do it, because do I really believe he's going to do it? Probably not. I think he knows better. But to say something like that, not only does it fan the or give fuel to the left and soften the target for future Democrat presidents who can say, well, even Donald Trump thought we should limit the First Amendment, but it should not have been said for not only all of those reasons, but especially because it gives a bad name to Republicans and people running for office with an R behind their name in the future. No, I'm not being, well, that's the only reason I disagree with it, so future Republicans can't win. No, but I'm making the point on why a Republican should not even say it, especially if he's just using it for leverage, especially if he's using it as a threat to get them to shut up. It shouldn't be said for those reasons alone, let alone the future repercussions it has on the political system in our country. So I will jump off of that and off that bandwagon, so to speak. And I'm going to continue with the other things I want to talk about, which pertain to Epstein. And, this has been something that the Democrats and Republicans have been playing volleyball with. They've been talking about how Epstein was really a Republican donor and he's really a Democrat, and we're finding out that both Republicans and Democrats buddied up, cozied up to Epstein. We're finding that they both covered up. We're finding that they both cozied up to Epstein, but we're also finding that the how shall we say the duck and cover, the smoke and mirrors, the horse and pony show that's resulting as a result of not releasing the files is becoming a whole nother story, and which is why I did a little bit of a deep dive into it, and which is what I want to point out. Also, don't forget about the RNC store, where you can get the benefits of apricot seeds, when you go to rncstore.com/WWFA, my promo code, where you are going to get some big discounts and also protect your medical freedom. My first meme up here, which in relation to the Epstein files, which I think you'll find funny, the meme basically says, it shows, I'll make it a little bit smaller here, changing the camera around a little bit. It basically says they released the Epstein files and what the Epstein files are going to look like. And I present to you the Epstein files, the meme says, and it's just black lines. Of course, it's probably something that's typed out and just black lines covering everything. So you see, it's everything has been redacted if they release the Epstein files, which both Democrats and Republicans, they don't want it released, either side. They're both blaming the other side, and they're both saying it's the other side that's really holding it up. So let's talk about this for a few minutes. When I dived into it a little bit, I saw a meme or a little report that says Tim Burchard. It was talking about Tim Burchard and about the Epstein list, and he said a report which I'll read to you in just a minute. But Tim Burchard was the co-author of the bill sponsored to release the Epstein files. Isn't that amazing that we need a bill to release the Epstein files? The U.S. House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed a bill. Go back up. 6 days ago, House Democrats blocked the Republican Tim Burchard's motion. I'm sorry, the motion to get the Epstein files straight to the floor. Burchard's request required the unanimous consent of the House. Democrats blocked it. Then we got another article out 21 hours ago that the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, overwhelmingly passed a bill co-sponsored by U.S. Rep. Tim Burchard. See, there's that bill, compelling the Department of Justice to release as much information on the files as possible. There's one player. Now we go to another one. That's something I'm gonna bring up later. The where Tim Burchard, this of course is from Facebook. Let me say something here. I'm gonna bring to my show things that I find on social media. And do I verify it? For the most part, yes, I do. Do I always claim that's 100% right? No, I don't. Do I want to bring false information out? Absolutely not. But what I want to do is, there's lots of sources of information. It's hard to tell which ones are 100%, 90%, 50%. But because when you see smoke, there's usually fire. Or let's face it, we need to use our critical thinking skills to at least look at information and say, is my gut about this that it's accurate, not accurate, right, not right? Or does it lead us down the rabbit hole in a good way to find other information, which is what I did. I looked up, Tim Burchard, and I looked up some things and I went, wait a minute. There's other stuff. There's something over here. It mentions this person, that person. So if you use your critical thinking skills and forget the narratives and put those aside, you begin to digest information differently. You begin to absorb it differently. You begin to see it a little bit differently. So the way that I am doing it now with bringing up multiple sources is I want you to see that there's more going on than we're hearing. All the sides are guilty for whatever reason or whatever they're guilty of, or just responsible, we'll say. Not guilty, but responsible. And we need to see this. And the more we look at it, you begin to see what I see and what I would like for others to see, again, using those critical thinking skills, that there's more to it than the narratives. There's more to it than what we're being told. It's deeper than what we can imagine. So when you look at these things I'm putting up here, information I bring you, fact check it, look it up, let it be a motivator to bring you into receiving some of the information that I have. And again, because I try not to do a 3-hour podcast, I'm not going down these rabbit holes where we find the exact truth. Not that I don't want the exact truth at all whatsoever, but I want to bring you to the information. My goal isn't to convince you one way or the other. My goal is to give people a more broad view, an overview that there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to what we're hearing. And while common sense kind of says, oh, yeah, I know that, whatever, roll your eyes, don't blame it on the Republicans. Don't blame it on the Democrats, because in many cases, they're two sides of the same coin. Not criticizing my Republican friends. I'm not jumping ship. I'm simply saying that we have to be able to call out things as we see it. Back to the post that I have about Tim Burchett. It says Representative Tim Burchett is livid. Quote, I am totally disgusted with this bunch of losers. Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett, late vote series to censure Delegate Stacey Plaskett. She's the one that received a sizable contribution from Epstein, which apparently is legal. I'm not sure. But she also is the one who was texting with him during a committee hearing, getting instructions on how to better attack Trump from Epstein sending her the text. And so she's on some pretty powerful committee. And that just tells you how corrupt this place is. But the disgusting thing about it was 4 Republicans chose not to vote, 3 Republicans voted present, and 3 Republicans voted no. So it failed. You see, this one actually tells us that the Republicans are more to blame for this thing failing earlier. Again, whether this is 100% accurate, it conflicts with the other article that I read a little bit, which said the Democrats are to blame for not getting it to the floor. My point is, this is some stuff that were little bits of information you hear behind the scenes. And when you dig a little bit further and find out a little bit more, I hope that most people will see what I see, which we begin to see more of, that it's up to us to see the information and hold these people accountable, we'll say. Everybody, so it failed. And that's what they did. And what they did was cut a deal. They cut a deal on an ethics vote on another Republican. And that's just wrong. Everybody ought to stand on their own. If it were truly, we don't care whose party these sex offenders and all this other stuff are in, we're going after them, then we couldn't, that was the end of a quote, then we wouldn't be cutting deals. To me, it's really disgusting. I get disgusted about some things, but this is the one that's really, really bad. You've got some people on there who are the chairman of a committee and things like that. And that's the kind of people we put in leadership. It's bogus and it stinks. And at the first opportunity, I get to speak to our leadership. I will give them a piece of my mind. And I doubt it will go anywhere, but they're the most sewer dwelling people. And some of these folks, not all of them, but some of them are. It's just disgusting. It really is. And it goes on a few more sentences, but I'll save you the time. My point in bringing this up, again, is to show you not only the players, but also that all the players are on different sides. Um, and I will go back. Give me 1 second here, because I really want to show you these other articles. Actually, you're not going to see them on the Rumble page, but you're going to hear about them. And that's what's up next. Also on another article that I'd saved, and it is coming up right now. Bear with me. Of course, I've read the one about Tim Burchett, but here you go on the Epstein files. This other article says Obama leader. I really do. I'm trying to cut out some of this article because it calls names. I'll just read it. It's a post by another blogger named Terrence Williams, and he says Dollar Store Obama minority leader Jeffries solicited campaign donations from Jeffrey Epstein in 2013, years after his conviction, according to emails released from Epstein's estate. Jeffrey Epstein was played Jeffrey Epstein, this is written wrong. Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting a minor in 2010. So why would Jeffries ask him for money in 2013? That is one of the articles. Again, my point is they were all cuddling up to Epstein. So when the Democrats yell and say, see, it's the Republicans and Trump's probably on it. And now we're finding out from some of this non-partisan stuff that the Democrats were also cozying up to Jeffrey Epstein. The Democrat who texted, this is an interesting article, and this is brings in the other player on this. Democrat who was texting Epstein asking for Trump dirt gives patently insane excuse. Democrat Virgin Islands delegate Stacey Plaskett claimed on Tuesday that she was texting convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein during a 2013 hearing because he was a consultant and not, at the time, under federal investigation. It was recently revealed that Plaskett was texting Epstein in real time during a congressional hearing with former Trump attorney turned adversary Michael Cohen. Epstein was texting Plaskett information to seemingly go after President Donald Trump. I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, Plaskett said, defending herself on Tuesday. It was not public knowledge that at the time he was under federal investigation and was sharing information with me. You see, my friends, this is the stuff I'm telling you about, that if we don't start using more of our critical thinking and looking at information as who else is involved, what other parties are involved, because the Republicans are in charge technically. I know they can be stopped in different ways and different voting procedures. But the reality is, are they really the ones stopping this and are in control? Or now we're seeing that there's Democrats able to stop it, and some Republicans have turned against some Republicans for whatever the reason may be. And those are multiple different rabbit holes that go down. I just want you to look at this in an overview instead of a partisan way. Look at it in an overview way so we can call on not only people in public office to get more of this information out, but we can call on them to say, hey, look, we're paying attention. Because when you allow them to box you up into sides or into your little boxes and cages, and they chain you up in there, and you lock yourselves up with your own narratives and ideologies that you believe in, you start to ignore the other pieces of information. See, I purposely did not call them facts. Pieces of information that are pieces of a puzzle that give you eventually the whole picture of what's going on instead of just pieces of it. Now back to my memes. I kind of wanted to give you some different players so that way you could kind of see what I'm seeing, that there's a lot more to it than what we're all being told or what we're all hearing. And it's not I don't even think it's a party thing. I don't think that it's Republicans are just as guilty as Democrats. I think there's a lot of individuals in each party that were cozying up to Epstein and using the political influence that they were getting from not only Epstein, but from the people that he surrounded himself with and his little groups and minions that he had control over. That there's individuals in both parties that were using Epstein for political power, political purposes. And that is where the real cover up is. which shows you, in some ways, if you look at Epstein being the coin, and you got Democrat on one side and Republican on the other. Like we've been saying, there's two sides to every. I'm sorry, there's the Republicans and Democrats are just two sides of the same coin. My next meme up that I've got has two cartoon-looking people. It says, "I think the government should have less power," and the other person says, "You're a fascist." This meme, by the way, is from the Atlas Society, which I strongly recommend that you go visit them. The purpose of this, bringing this up, was, you know, like we said earlier, you get a lot of Democrats that are, have been able to be convinced that the Republicans are the fascist ones. And which is why I'm against Trump having said about getting rid of or getting ABCs to lose their license. And as a result, it makes Republicans look like fascists. But then we see what Antifa members and other people who are actually fascist on the left are doing in their rioting and who they're supporting to show everybody who the fascists really are and where they're hiding. But yet, when people say, we want less government, they go, you believe in kings. Only kings can destroy the government. Only kings can control the government. It depends on how you look at it. And it's sad that the narratives have convinced other people, or some people rather, that when we call on less government or smaller government or the elimination of bureaucracies, we get called fascist. When the reality is it's just conservative principles that we need to put in place to save money and also put more power back in the hands of people. When you get rid of federal bureaucracies and you get rid of government, you put more power back into the hands of people because of the fact that we, the people, then have to do more for ourselves. We, the people, have to find local ways to solve the problems that government was doing in bigger ways. Once again, some listeners are going to say, well, but we need this agency or that agency. I get it. Not all agencies, but the Department of Labor, I'm sorry, the Department of Education is one that we can certainly eliminate and bring more power back to local schools and parents and people on a local level when you take away the power of the federal government. Either way, smaller government is less fascist, not more fascist, which proves this meme wrong. My next meme up is a quote by Thomas Sowell, one of my favorites. It says, "A strong nation is built on individual responsibility, not collective dependency." I'm going to flip this around a little bit, and I'm going to give my own perspective. When we start relying not only on government, but on the elected officials that are running our government, and we collectively become dependent on them to do things for us and make our decisions, which I get it. We have a constitutional republic where we elect these people to make the decisions for us. I get it. But when we collectively depend on them, and there's a difference. Dependence is different from giving them the right to vote or make laws on our behalf. Difference being, dependency is basically giving up, abdicating the power of your vote. That it's basically abdicating the power of your freedom and giving it all to them. I know it's parallel. It's close because you kind of, with your vote, you give them that power. But when you give them your dependency, you give them power over your individual responsibility, which takes the Thomas Sowell quote and puts it in, not wrong, but kind of goes in a different direction, where he says, a strong nation is built on individual responsibility, not collective dependency. When we, the people on the other end, collectively become dependent upon the elected officials and government, we end up abdicating our personal individual responsibility, giving his meme or his quote even more power in reverse as it is in forward. My next meme up is by Thomas Massey. It says, if legislators always vote on with the president, we have a king. If legislators always vote with the prevailing wind, we have mob rule. If legislators always vote with the Constitution, we have a republic, which is what is going wrong with our country right now. Our legislators aren't always voting with the Constitution in mind. They're voting with the narratives and the popular, actually the popular ideologies and the narratives, and they're voting with the mobs, the individual groups that are promoting narratives and calling everybody else racist or homophobic or bigoted if they don't follow those narratives. Right now, we have legislators that are voting as a result of the mob rule. And we don't have, fortunately, we don't have everybody always going with the president right now. Not because he's wrong, not because the elected officials are right, but because we can see that we have a group of people who are individual minded, thinking people who are putting the will of the people as a priority and not as a body or not voting as a party in a block as does a mob rule. I kind of went in a bunch of different directions on that. I get it, but it's just kind of a way of thinking. It's just kind of a way of thinking that I want people to be more cognizant of, that if we always give our legislators full power instead of expecting positive results and more freedom, then we end up where we are today, or we end up, like Massey is warning us, with a mob rule or with a king. But if we call on them to always vote with the Constitution in mind, we keep our republic, we keep our freedoms, and we also end up demanding a smaller government. My next meme up is another one by Thomas Sowell. I got two today. You can tell he's one of my favorites. It says, envy, let me make it a little bit bigger. Envy was once considered to be one of the seven deadly sins before it became one of the most admired virtues under its new name, social justice. Again, I'm going to not change it up a little bit, but some things that come to my mind, like I did with the last one. I said change it up on the last one. I really mean things that come to my mind when I read it. But envy was once considered to be one of the seven deadly sins before it became one of the most admired virtues under its new name, social justice, because now when you envy somebody else's freedoms or you envy somebody else's way of life, people end up demanding our legislators make a law to stop it. We need to use social justice to change it for the greater good. So it becomes something that it becomes a tool, or as an accepted tool to use to take other people's freedoms away because some people got their feelings hurt, or they believe that social justice is more important than just raw freedom. But I also want to give you another parallel thought to this. When it says that envy was once considered to be one of the deadly sins, after it became one of the most admired virtues under its new name, social justice, and use a parallel thought to that, where we can talk about other things like theft. Theft used to be considered a sin. Theft and lying used to be considered a sin. It was wrong. Today's world, we allow politicians to steal from us and we allow them to lie to us. And we say it's okay as long as they're doing it for the greater good. It's okay that these elected officials are lying, there's elected officials that are, not all of them, but it's okay that there's elected officials lying to us because they're they're doing our bidding. Maybe an elected official that's lying, there's groups that give him ground cover or her cover because they're doing the work to perpetuate a narrative or an ideology or a belief system or the issues that this small group may need, or maybe just to build their bridge to nowhere. They need funding for it, so they're going to give that elected official a pass for lying. It's not a sin, you know, envy is not a sin if you call it social justice. Lying and stealing is not a sin if it's being done for the greater good. They're not sins if at least a small group that has an ideology or a narrative that we can't trample on benefits from that lie or that theft. So that's how I wanted to add to that one in that meme of Thomas Sowell. My next meme up is it's illegal. It's a girl smiling. It says it's illegal to bring a plant into our country because it might upset the ecosystem, but bringing in millions of people from the third world is supposed to make it better. It was just my thought to share, or the meme rather, because the thought that comes to my mind is everybody's getting all mad and upset about ICE deporting illegals right now and how bad it is. And even people on the right are now, well, we didn't want to round them all up because we don't want to hurt their feelings. It might be a bad thing. But since when was breaking the law okay as long as you're not hurting people's feelings? Or breaking the law is okay if they're cutting your grass, cleaning your house, or doing something else. It's okay. But just like we see when it comes to the welfare, people are posting these memes, that our federal government says don't feed the animals in the national park. It's a bad analogy. I get it, but it creates dependency, not the analogy of animals, but the analogy of dependence. That when is it okay? We see basic human laws are good for some groups, but not others. Aha. It all depends on what narrative you code it with. My next meme is this is another a third subtopic. I told you today's topics were Trump, threatening to take away the ABC's license. On the that they're going to take away somebody's ABC's license. I just want to double check that real quick. But we saw that as being one thing that was that was one topic. The other topic was Epstein, and it was ABC, by the way. I just double checked it. But the other third subtopic that I didn't mention in the beginning was this one, which is we are seeing that this administration wants to call for a gun registry, not a national gun registry. Bondi and the DOJ just demanded a gun registry. Of course, this is Donald Trump's DOJ, and Bondi was his appointee. But the article, which I won't read the whole article, I'll just give you the summarization of it right now, which is the DOJ and Pam Bondi is saying that they want the groups like the NRA and the GOA, the Gun Owners of America, to turn over their membership list, also known as a list of who has guns. Again, I'm not going to be a lapdog. I don't agree with this at all whatsoever. Coming out of this administration, I still say I support a lot of Trump's efforts and the directions he's going in on some of his policies that are doing good. But if it's a bad one, I'm going to call it out. This is a bad idea. It is an anti-Second Amendment approach. It is an anti-constitutional movement by this DOJ. And I did read an article. It looks like there's a lot of truth to this. I did do a little bit of research on this one, and all the articles that I'm reading says that this is somewhat accurate. The direction they're going in, it's anti-Second Amendment, it's anti-constitutional, and I absolutely don't agree with it. Here you go on my next meme, just a black background, white writing. It says, "Stop being offended by books, by art, and by people showing affection. Let's be offended by war, poverty, and environmental destruction." I interpret that a little bit differently. A lot of people aren't being yeah, they get offended. That's the left-wing narrative, that people are being offended by books, which I don't agree with some of the books that they want to put in children's sections. I think they should be put in adult sections, very simply. Or art, or people showing affection. They're referring to people that are living, that are gay, and they don't want them being publicly affectionate because, well, you get it. Let's be offended by war, poverty, and environmental destruction. I'm going to give you what comes to my mind when I read that. I took out the first sentence and said, and I say it this way: let's stop being offended by the narratives and the ideologies, and let's be offended by the things that our elected officials are doing wrong, which are causing wars, poverty, and more environmental destruction. In Louisiana, we have a battle going on with carbon capture. They've had the same battle in some northern states where it's going to destroy our environment. Carbon capture will eventually. Let's be offended by these things instead of the narratives. The narratives, we're allowing people to be butthurt and offended. Their feelings are hurt because some people agree or want this narrative and others don't agree with it. Everybody gets offended and somebody says something about it, and we get distracted and we don't say, hey, let's all get offended by the things that are actually destroying our country, like the national debt, which is going to cause more poverty. On to the next meme by C.S. Lewis. One of the most cowardly things ordinary people do is to shut their eyes to facts. It goes back to what I'm saying, that, hey, with everything going on, with everything that is happening and the memes coming out and the Facebook posts and the social media posts, it's hard to always say that's a fact, that's not a fact. Because especially today, a lot of them are more ideologically oriented. So if you agree with those ideologies, you tend to feel like or believe it's more of a fact than recognizing it as a narrative cloaked in, or you begin to you see it as a fact instead of going, oh, that's a narrative, it's an ideology, or it's not a fact, it's actually false, but it's cloaked in a narrative that I agree with, so it must be a fact. If we were to start really opening our eyes to more information on the other side, we can start to spot where the facts are and where the narratives and the ideologies end. That's what I thought about when I read that meme. And this, my friends, is the last meme for this show, which is from Aristotle. It says, be a free thinker and don't accept everything you hear as truth. Be critical and evaluate what you believe in. I try to follow this rule because, like I said at the beginning of the show, some things I bring on, you don't know whether they're really fact. They're on, they get off an article off the internet, but you at the same time don't want to go, oh, the ideology, the narrative is something I believe in, so it must be a fact. Instead, I want to look at things I'm hearing from the other side. Even though I might not agree with it, when you hear the other side's argument and you hear what other people are saying, then you tend to be able to notice I'm going to use a military term. You begin to triangulate the target, or in the case of words, the facts, or the case of information, the facts. And that's why we need to think more critically. That's why we need to open our eyes up more to what's going on. If you've enjoyed this show, I'm going to ask you to please, by all means, share it. And I've asked you about my sponsors. Go visit them. Also, go visit XS Sites. If you go to xssites.com, you're going to find some great illuminated sights that you can put on any gun. They have sights that fit any uh, gun that you may have or may not, which is another reason we have to fight for the Second Amendment, because we worry about it when Democrats are in office. But even now, when Republicans are in office, we have to be vigilant. We can't just blindly accept that, oh, our guys are in office, so everything's going to be okay. We have to be vigilant. We have to think more critically and keep our eyes open and defend and protect our Constitution, and do it as much as possible with people that are on the opposite side of the aisle from us, not giving up our beliefs and ideologies, but recognizing that other people on the other side of the aisle might be thinking just like us in some ways, shape, or form. But when we do that, we're able to notice the ones that are not on our sides and who are aligned to us. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please share the show, share the video, share the podcast with somebody that you think may want more information or think about things a little bit differently. Have a great day. God bless you. God bless America. And by all means, include God in your daily life. Appreciate you guys.